So we're going to be painting this ridge line with a little view of the beach. So that's why I included this little photo. And then this photo, it's kind of blurry and this is going to be, let's see, maybe this will be my ruler. So to start, I'm just going to put in our horizon line right here. So I am going to, for me, I love doing clouds, I love doing the sky, so I am going to place my horizon lower so that my sky is going to take up more of my paper. But again, if you would like your ocean to be bigger, that's totally fine, you can adjust it. And your horizon doesn't need to be perfectly straight, you can kind of eyeball it. So there we go. Mine's a little crooked, but that's okay. I have my horizon line right here. The next thing I'm going to draw is this ridge line. So you'll notice that on the left, this one is a little more triangular and it's a little shorter. Versus this hump over here for the second mountain, it's longer and flatter. So again, this is not precise. We're kind of just eyeballing it. I'm going to draw that kind of triangular peak. Come down, but not all the way to the horizon. I'm going to skim over that horizon and then come back up for the second peak. And then this one is flatter, so I'm just going to go straight across like that and come down. So you can reference that photo in front of you, and again, you can adjust it. So this is just inspiration. We're not trying to be precise here. We're just inspired by Maunalua. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to draw is this line where the ocean is meeting the sand, and I'm going to have it kind of go receding away from us as it gets further away. So I'm just going to pick a point, maybe about here, and I'm just going to slant it up towards the horizon. And that's all we're drawing. That's it. So easy, right? You can do it. Just one straight line for the horizon, two little humps for the mountain, and then a slanted line for your ocean. Just a curved line going towards the horizon. When we're painting nature, especially, like if you get on the freeway after this and you're driving home, be safe, of course, make sure you're looking at the road, but also when you're looking at the sky to observe the clouds, to see all the blue in the ocean, nothing is flat. Like there's so many different colors and so many variations, even when like a single tree. So I think making art that's inspired by nature, it helps us to really appreciate all those little details that sometimes we miss because we're too busy. And I think for me, it's very comforting to look at that big picture, because sometimes I get so stuck in my own head and with what I'm going through, it's helpful to kind of step back and take a look outside. Okay. Yeah, so we've drawn our horizon, we drew our shoreline, we drew our mountains. And then for the clouds, you can draw them in. I personally prefer not to, because I feel like, just for me, when I draw lines, I feel like I have to stay within them and it makes me kind of rigid. Whereas for these clouds, we want to be kind of loose and kind of flowy, so I don't like to draw them in. I just like to kind of go randomly and see where they end up. But you'll notice, and if you go outside too and you look at the sky, you'll notice that the clouds towards the top that are closer to you, they're going to be bigger. And as you go towards the horizon, the clouds are going to get kind of smaller and skinnier because they're further away from you. So again, the clouds towards the top, closer to you, going to be bigger. I didn't do a great job of it in this one, but the clouds towards the top generally will be bigger. As you go towards the horizon, they're going to get a little smaller and a little skinnier. So generally, and I don't do this all the time, but generally when I'm painting, I like to start with the bigger sections first. So for me, I'm going to start with this sky before we do anything else. So to rehydrate this paint, you might find it helpful to just put a couple drops of water on each of your colors just to help them rehydrate. That way you won't need to scrub them so hard when you're trying to get the paint to come up. So I'm just dropping some water into all my wells. Oh, and mine is dripping. So if this happens to you, don't freak out, it's okay. While it's still wet, you can just grab a paper towel and you can dab up most of it. And what I'm going to do is just re-wet that, re-wetting it, and then I'm going to lift it off. And I'm going to cover it up with more paint, so it's fine. but I'm dropping in the sky. And that dripping problem is something you won't really have to worry about because your paper is going to be flat. So you're not going to have to work against gravity as much. But for me, I'm just laying in the sky. And for the clouds, I'm just avoiding where I want the clouds to be. So I'm kind of sculpting the clouds in. So I'm leaving white where I want my clouds to be. A nice watery way. And you can kind of rinse out your brush, get some water on it, and then just come kiss the edge, and then the paint will bleed down. So I'm just adding some water. So if you add some water, you'll get a soft edge like that instead of a hard edge up here. So if you've laid down a wash of color, while it's still wet, you can take another color and you can just kind of drop it in. And then it'll kind of feather, it'll kind of bleed, and you'll get like a nice soft transition, which is quite fun. So this one I was just kind of tilting the paper, and now I got this cloud looking thing, which is fun. So I'm using a lot of the same, so mostly cerulean blue, this lighter blue. And I am going to use a little bit of the darker blue, ultramarine. So to get this kind of soft edge towards the horizon, what I'm going to do before I even put any color on my ocean is I'm just going to take some water, and I'm wetting right under the horizon. So I'm kind of putting a strip of water right under the horizon, not all the way up, almost to the top. So I'm just wetting the paper with some clean water. And if you want to check where on your paper is wet, just kind of hold up your paper to the light and kind of turn it, and you can see where it's kind of glistening. That's where it's wet. And I'm going to take my blue, and I'm going to just kind of drop in that blue. See, I didn't wet my paper enough. So I'm going to go in. And you'll see that we can get that softness by adding some more water. So that paint can kind of come on down. So yeah, again, water is your friend. The water is going to help your colors blend together. Putting more cerulean blue, kind of painting in the ocean. I'm leaving a little bit of like white lines just to kind of suggest some waves. So I'm not painting all of the ocean blue, I'm leaving some white. Leaving some waves. And then I'm going to add a little bit of that darker ultramarine blue by the horizon just to create some more contrast. So I'm going in that ultramarine blue. And again, these are all suggestions, so you can totally change the colors if you want. You don't need to use this exact color combination. And if you're struggling to keep your horizon line straight, that's okay because we're going to do the mountains last. So if you feel like you made any mistakes with your ocean line, you can just cover it up with the mountains. And if any of you are moving super fast and you're almost done already, I can give you another paper if you'd like to do a second one. But there is no rush. We have lots of time.
Are you putting the darker blue at the top or at the bottom of the waves?
Good question. If you want to be realistic, you would put it at the bottom of the wave, but you can do whatever you want. I put it on top of mine. It's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, excess. And then I'm just going to go in here, drop in some yellow. And again, it's not about creating an exact reflection, we're just reflecting those colors. I wanted to soften the edge. Then I took my clean damp brush and I just kind of went along the edge, I kind of skimmed it. And now that color is kind of bleeding down. So that can soften your edge. As it is, I want it to be a little warmer. But again, up to you. But for me, I want it warmer, so I'm gonna take some of that green and I'm gonna add yellow to it. So I'm rinsing out my brush, no green is on my brush because I don't want to contaminate my yellow. And then I'm going to pick up some of this warmer yellow and mix it together. So now I've got a warmer green. I think it looks a little more natural. I'm more of a fan of that color. So now I have some green, that yellow green on my palette. And I'm going to have some yellow waiting on the side. So what I'm going to do for this mountain range, because I want there to be variations between the yellow and the green, so I'm actually going to use multiple colors as I'm painting, and I'm going to allow them to touch each other, so then they're going to blend together. So I'm going to alternate between this green and some yellows. So I'm going to start with this yellow-green that I mixed, kind of lay that in there, and then I'm going to switch, and I'm going to pick up some yellow from my palette. Kind of go in with that yellow. So again, I'm just alternating between that green and that yellow. And I'm doing it while the colors are still wet, so they'll mix together nicely. And I'm not really rinsing my brush out in between. I'm just kind of going for it. Alternating yellow and green. And you'll notice that if you use your two different types of yellow, you'll get different effects. One of the yellows is almost fluorescent and the other one is a little more orange. So if you use both of those yellows, you'll get some fun effects on your mountains. Yeah, if you let those wet colors kind of touch each other, they'll blend really nicely.
मैंने ये brown. Mama, can this nice your strawberry brown? Is strawberry brown? Yes, I get them. Let's go to the garage.
And then one of the things I'm going to do towards the bottom of the mountain is I want to do like a little suggestion of trees. So while it's still a little bit wet, I'm gonna take some darker green. And this might be a little hard to see from a distance because it's pretty subtle. But I'm just taking my brush and I'm kind of going upright again, so I just get little pinpoints of paint. And I'm just gonna drop in some little dots towards the horizon, and those are gonna be my trees. So I'm just kind of dropping those in, little dots to suggest some trees. But you can do whatever you want. You can add some buildings if you wanted to. And for me, I'm gonna wait for this layer to dry, and then I'm gonna go back in, and I'm gonna add in some ridges. So let's see, up here is dry. So I'm going back in, just adding in some ridges. Again, this is not an exact science. You just add them where you think they look good. And then if you want to create some interest and you don't want all the lines to be hard, then what you can do is, again, take your clean damp brush, we're blotting out the excess water, and you can just kind of skim over those lines you just put in, and that'll soften some of them. So it's totally up to you. If you want that really clean line, then just paint on top of the dried layer. But if you want that softer edge, you can go back in with your clean damp brush and soften it up. It's all about your preference. And then for me, I would like to make this look a little more natural, so what I might do, I'm gonna mix my green. I'm gonna add in a little touch of this kind of pinkish red color, just a tiny bit, and that'll kind of mute, it'll kind of dull the green. So how many of you are familiar with like color wheels? Anybody remember that from like elementary school, the color wheel? So if you mix together complementary colors, so colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, they're gonna mute each other, and you're gonna get kind of like a grayish brownish color if you mix those together. So you can get a lot of nice neutral tones by mixing complementary colors. So I want to get a more natural looking muted green, so I'm just going to add a little bit of that red to my green. And I'll add some yellow to it. So now I got kind of like a brownish green color, which is what I wanted. And then I'm going to kind of put this over. And that's to kind of warm up the green, because I got a lot of really strong kind of blue greens going here. So I want to warm it up, kind of balance it out. But again, totally up to you. It's just a suggestion. Again, take your time. We still have a good 40 minutes, so if you want to let your paper dry, take a break, you can totally do that. No rush at all.